Page 7. Page 7 is a simple waterfall feature. And I'm going to come back and we're going to install this after I get my designer paper together. So this is going to be a right flap. And so the right flap is going to get installed on the very edge centered. I wrote that wrong, so gotta double check. That was in the wrong area, so it should be P7 spine because the pocket is this way. So almost put that in wrong. Okay. Okay, we're gonna center this on the away from the spine on the pocket side. There we go. So the right flap is 5.5 by 4, 5.5 by 4. You're going to score 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side. So this is 4.5 score. And this is 4.5 across the top, 5.5 across the side. Like so. And then the waterfall is going to go just like that. And it's all going to be held together with a magnet. But I want to get my mat in first before we do that. Okay, so that's page 7. I'm going to set aside my waterfall. Page 7. Okay, on page 7, we've got this base mat. I think that's what my plan was, because it's going to be across from page 6. Yeah, I think that's what it was. So I've got page 6 and page 7. So it's a little bit bowed out. There we go. So we've got this 5.5 by 4.5 flap that was already pre-installed. And now we're going to add this waterfall feature on top of this. And we're going to use this flap to hold everything in place. And this waterfall feature will hopefully go in just like this. We're going to install it right on top of this mat. And actually, I thought I had planned it so that it would be exactly the same. Oh, I changed it. That's why. Okay, so originally I had planned the waterfall feature so that it would cascade over here and it would be the same dimension as this flap. And then last night when I was going through and trimming my paper, I decided that I wanted my waterfall to feature these cut aparts. And I'll show them to you. Which is on the back of one of the, I think it was from one of the A4s, but I'm not sure. It could have been the 12. No, it's from the A4, and I can tell because it has the same pattern, but it's slightly scaled down. Anyway, they're smaller than what I had originally planned. So that's what I'm going to use for my waterfall, and it's making me rethink this flap. So I might have to do something a little bit different to make this work. So hang tight, everybody, while I figure this out. So typically, yeah, it's a little bit longer. Typically what I do is I score it 1/2 inch, and then I butt them right up against each other, bing, 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 and then that helps me get my standard spacing. but this is actually hanging down longer than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in my trimmer and I'm going to trim a sliver off each one of these hinges, so it'll be a little bit shorter than a 1/2 inch. So when I stack them against each other, it should pull them closer together and give me the look I'm after. Hi. Hello. And so you can see what I've done. I just took a little bit off and you can see the difference between the two. So what I just shaved off was about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, now I'm going to stack them and see if this is going to do the trick for me. And my guess is it will. Or my hope. I guess not my guess, but my hope. Okay, so that's what the offset's going to look like. And let's see. Did I do it? Well, looky there. Pretty good planning, don't you think? All right, so we're right on. So basically scored at 1/2 inch, but then I went back and trimmed a 1/16 of an inch off. And these are all perfectly sized to use these cut aparts. So that's what I did. Now let me give you the dimensions. So what is it? I wrote it down somewhere. That doesn't seem quite right. It's 4. Sorry, it's not precise enough. I'm going to measure it over here. 4. Okay. So I started out with 4 5/8 and then scored 1/2 inch and then took off a 1/16 of an inch. So you can kind of go at this a couple of different ways. You can either make this panel just that much bigger so that you don't have to adjust these, or you can do what I did, 4 5/8, trim off a 1/16 of an inch after you score a 1/2 inch. So that's exactly what I did, but you don't have to do it that way. You can get there a whole bunch of different ways, or leave it at its 4 5/8 by 3 1/8, and then just adjust this. Or it's okay if it hangs out a little too. It's really up to you. So that's what I did. So again, 4 5/8, scored 1/2 inch, and then I took off a 1/16 of an inch. And you'll need 4 of those. So that's what I did, and that's what I'm sticking with. So I'm gonna start by laying down this piece, I think, but I have to think about, we collectively have to think about what we're doing with the magnet, right? So I know I need enough of an overlap to keep this all closed. And I'm really struggling. I designed the book long before the paper, as you can tell probably. So I kind of like that, but that doesn't give me enough overlap. So I really need to move it over quite a bit. And if I do that, do I like that look? Not really. But it works. What do you guys think? And I think this is what I have planned for here. Yeah. All right, that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to need a magnet here, and then there's going to be a magnet on the opposing side as well. So we won't need anything under this mat, so we can go ahead and get this mat put down. All right, so that's in. So the next thing is I'm going to want a reference line here because that's where my waterfall is going to start, right there. And it's going to cascade down. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I have tape on here, but the first one that I put down, I'm going to add some glue to so I have a chance to torque it into place before it's completely committed to the paper. And then I'm going to get my in. So what I'm doing here is I do have two reference lines. One's an 1/8 inch and one's a 1/4 inch. And then I have the lettering for Scrap and Create. And so I was actually going in a little bit deeper, but I could see that the edge of the pattern paper is running right along the edge of the R from Scrap. And so all I'm doing is making sure that it's not drifting down or up, and then I have a fairly straight line. And then once you get your first one in, everything else gets measured off it. So some people have asked me about that. What am I doing when I'm dragging it along the edge? And it's just to make sure it's not drifting one way or the other. Okay, and this should be our last one, but before I stick it down, I'm going to test and make sure it's going to land where I expect it to, because this is my last chance to trim it. And it looks like it's going to be right where I want it. And when I say last chance to trim it, meaning I could trim something off the bottom of this if I needed to. It looks like it's going to be fine. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. I'm happy with it. There we go. I'm going to show that to you because there's a lot of shadow in here. So if you look, I've got perfectly flush at the top, and it's very close down here. It's a little bit off, but I can definitely live with that. And so that's in. Now we got to figure out where we're putting our magnets to hold everything in place. So you just want to make sure you place the magnet so it's far enough in that it's not going to be exposed on the border of your waterfall. There we go. And it's not. So that's going to hold everything in place. Easy peasy. Okay, so I'm going to look back at page 6 again. This is, I can't remember the order, but I think I did this. Yeah. Was how my waterfall is going to look. So I'm trying to decide right now what's going to be my top paper. This or this. And I like both. It's A or B. I think I'm going to go with B. I like the books. Okay, so that's in. Now we just do our waterfall. There we go. Looking good. Okay, now we're going to do the flip side, and I've just trimmed out, I took one sheet of paper and trimmed it out to cover the backs of all of these, so they're going to look very similar as we go through. It's all part of the same sheet. And again, just make sure your orientation is right as you're going to lay things down, and that you haven't turned your book upside down. It doesn't have a strong pattern, but there is handwriting, so it is directional. Okay, so 6, 7, and we're on to page 8. We're going to turn the page, and we're going to disregard this because I did my orientation wrong. This is actually the sides. This will be the spine, and this is the top of page 8. So this is going to go like so, and like so. So it's the same as page 1. This is 8 by 2.5, 8 by 2.5. You're going to score a 1/2 inch along 3 sides to make a pocket. And I don't talk about it, but I always miter my corners. And we're just going to place this at the very bottom of page 8. Like so. And then the top flap, we're going to shift it down so it's going to be centered from the top of this pocket to the top of the page. We're going to center this flap, and I just need to come in, ouch, sorry, a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to use my pencil here and just put a little tick mark at 1/2 inch. So visually I can see where to place this. And that is going to go right there. And I'm just going to put down one corner and use it as a pivot to straighten it. Oh, that doesn't look very straight at all, does it? I'm having some trouble with shadows in here, so bear with me for a second. Okay, try that one more time. There we go. Okay, so there's our top flap. And then we're going to place something in the pocket, and that's what's going to hold this flap in place when we're done. And we've got lots and lots of choices with the Ciao Bella collection in terms of cut aparts and things that we can tuck into to the pocket to hold this flap in place. But that is the end of page 8 and it's interactive pieces. So now it's time to start layering in the designer papers. So I'll be right back, which is the same as page 1, flap design that is. So this is the print that I've chosen to go on the front, and I really like that. So there's definitely no chance I'm going to flip it over. So let's go ahead and get some glue on it and get it laid down. There's a little bit of a bubble here because of the waterfall on the back side. Just FYI. Okay, and then we've got this little strip that's I'm planning to put down here, and then another little strip up here. And then if you recall on page 1, I had some trouble getting that strip in straight. So I'm gonna give myself a minute to think about this. And while I'm doing that, we'll go ahead and lay in the pocket. Which is just the flip side of the green. That is the other look, which I don't care for as much. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Let's see, what do we have going on here? All right, this is trimmed out for here. I'm gonna go ahead and lay that down. Pretty easy to know which side because there's cut aparts on the other. Okay. All right, that looks gorgeous. Gorgeous. So now I've got this little trim piece, and now, like I said, I had such a hard time getting it in straight. I'm kind of rethinking it. I'm trying to decide if I have another option, and I might. I don't like that. I don't like it. So I'm going to see if I can find a larger piece of this and then just cover this whole thing in it. And then when it's closed, you just see this exposure. But I think one of the reasons that I went with this strip is because I knew I was going to run out of that pattern. So let me just shuffle through the papers a little bit and see if we have another option. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. That was one of my favorite contrast pieces was this green, and that is the problem, is you get one sheet of it. So that's the reason I've color blocked it, is I only had one sheet. Okay, so I can't do that. So, hey, leave that alone, then. No, that's not for you. My puppy dog came in and she found a bow, so she's tearing at it. Okay, so we are gonna make it work with these. Honey, it's not for you. Not for you. That's a good box, leave it. Okay, sorry about that. Bump the table. I'm not sure, but I think it makes the camera jump about. All right. Here we go, and then we're going to install this down here. Make sure it's got ink on it. It does. All right, so that's in. There we go. Got that nice look. All right, and as you recall, we're going to put something in the pocket to hold everything in place. And the last thing is right here. And so this needs to be trimmed out. See how that looks. Looks good. Gonna ink it. Okay, that's gonna be the end of page 8. Page 8. Okay, all